After 3 years of domination, Kassai Centauri's Sellsword has finally ascended to living legend status in Blitz, leaving with her a hole in the format and an even bigger hole in our hearts. Luckily, however, there exists a hero with a very similar playstyle to our favorite red-handed mercenary, Dorinthea Quicksilver Prodigy. Releasing in classic battles, this Dorinthea uses the Dawnblade Resplendent to do what Kassai did best: attack twice. And so in this video, I'm going to give you my iteration of Dorinthea, translating the Kassai deck that I used to win a couple of skirmishes. Starting off with the hero and weapon, Dorinthea Quicksilver Prodigy has 20 life and one very simple ability. If you give the Dawnblade Resplendent go again, it can attack a second time. The Dawnblade itself swings for 2, but on the second swing, it gets a +1 boost. This lets Dorinthea play very similarly to Kassai, although admittedly not as powerful, at least on the surface. Two things this deck is missing is the ability to reduce the cost of your second sword swing and the Kassai specialization, Blood on Her Hands. Dori does have her own powerful specializations, but the cost reduction ability is what really hurts in this transition, although I would argue this simply makes Dorinthea a much more fair deck than Kassai was. However, the core strategy is the same. You want to lean on the ability to swing twice, applying pressure on the opponent with that split damage, eventually grinding them down to where they are forced to block everything. Even if we use a 1-cost go again enabler, that allows us to keep that card and a blue pitch in hand at minimum, letting us block with the other 2 cards to maintain our life total. Once you get your opponent down low enough where they have to block with half or more of their hand, or they have an off turn, that's when you can really start to go in with your entire grip. And when you do keep extra cards in hand, you typically want to swing with the Dawnblade, give it go again, and then boost that second swing massively with the various pump cards in the deck, utilizing the weapon's own +1 ability. Starting with the equipment, I'm going to be going over the pieces that I run, but I will include the budget options on the screen for those of you who don't quite have all the cards you need, but still want to run the deck. To start, we've got the Crown of Providence. The ability to fix a hand that doesn't have go again or trade our arsenal for an extra block on the turns we really need it is incredibly strong and is why I chose this over the Arcanite Skullcap. For the chess piece, we're running the tried and true Courage of Bladehold. 2 block and the ability to swing our sword for free enables some incredibly strong go-off turns. However, don't be afraid to use it in a pinch with hit and run to get 2 free sword swings when you're in a tight spot. As for the arms, I'm currently using the Ironsong Versus, but you can just as easily swap this for the Braveforge Bracers. Being able to pitch a blue, play a hit and run, and activate the Versus ability on one of our sword swings is a great way to force the opponent to block, as that courage token will only make our next turn that much stronger. Finally, getting to our last main piece of equipment, we have the linchpin of the entire deck, Valiant Dynamo. Because the core strategy is to use 2-card hands to maintain pressure while letting us block with the other 2 cards, the Dynamo converts every turn from a reliable 6 block to 7 block, and this is incredibly crucial for stopping breakpoints. This card essentially gains you 1 life for every turn cycle of the game, and it allows us to slowly gain advantage over the opponent while we whittle them down. And so moving on to the main deck, I've split it into 4 parts. The first will be Dorinthea's specializations, the second is the go again enablers, the third is the pump effects, and the fourth part is just a sprinkle of spice. For this Blitz deck, we're going to use 3 of Dorinthea's specializations. The main one she runs comes in the Classic Battles deck with the hero, that being Glistening Steelblade. This card is unbelievably strong, not only granting us go again, but also giving the Dawnblade Resplendent counters when it hits. And unlike the original Dawnblade, these counters don't get removed if we don't hit, meaning that if we get 1 or 2 on the Resplendent, we are powered up for the rest of the game. Much like Blood on Her Hands, this is the crucial card that we want to set up for, usually arsenaling it and waiting for the opportunity to use our full hand to push this through. And a great way to do that is Dorinthea's second specialization, Singing Steelblade. This attack reaction gives a +1 boost to our weapon, and if the opponent blocked with a card from hand, it lets us search the deck for any other attack reaction, banish it, and play it this turn. This can be used in a multitude of ways, but it's usually grabbing us a go again enabler like Glint the Quicksilver, or in the case of using a Glistening Steelblade, a pump card like Ironsong Response to ensure we hit. Singing Steelblade is just a great toolbox card that only gets better the lower our opponent's life total is, since they'll be more often forced to block. The third and final specialization that Dorinthea has to use is the Steelblade Supremacy, which gives the Dawnblade +2 boost for the entire turn. And when it hits, we draw a card. It should go without saying why this is so strong, as it can do some nasty things if you manage to hit twice with this on the field. Usually it forces blocks on the first swing, but then you can pump the second attack to ensure it hits, getting an extra card to arsenal for the next turn. Leaving your opponent without much to do for their turn while having a 5-card hand for your own is an incredibly powerful position to be in, and is a great way to set up for those Glistening Steelblade turns. But now we'll go to the section of the deck which is by far the most crucial, the Go Again enablers. We've already talked about the powerhouse Glistening Steel Blade, and the next best option for this deck is the entire line of hit and runs. This 0 cost action grants our sword Go Again, and if it's played on the second swing, it also grants a 3 or 2 or 1 pump. Being 0 cost, this lets us pitch a blue and have a single resource floating to use on either a 1 cost attack reaction or action, or utilize our arms. In that same vein, the other key enabler is Glint the Quicksilver. This card being a 0 cost blue block 3 is incredible, and the added bonus of getting to draw a card if the opponent blocked from hand is icing on the cake. But that is an important thing to note. Do not hesitate to use this just for the Go Again. It's much more important to have consistent pressure than it is to try and draw that card. However, if you have 2 Go Again enablers in hand and you can arsenal one for a future turn and your opponent doesn't block, I would advise saving this one for later. Moving into the 1 cost Go Again cards though, we have Spoils of War, Precision Press Blue, Run Through, and Blade Flash. All of these do the same thing. They grant Go Again for a single resource, which is the bare minimum requirement for our 2 card hand turns. Spoils of War is great, granting Go Again and giving our first sword swing a +2 boost. The copper doesn't matter in this deck as it does for Kassai, so it's not as strong, but it's still very solid. Run Through does a similar thing, except it gives the pump effect to the next sword attack, which actually works quite well with the Dawnblade's own ability. As for Precision Press and Blade Flash, they're simply blue Go Again cards. Precision Press does have the added bonus of giving Piercing 1, which can sometimes be relevant, and it also blocks 3, which is good. Blade Flash is easily the worst of the 1 cost Go Again cards, but we still want it because, well, you need to be attacking twice every turn. But the last Go Again card is the 2 cost Driving Blade Blue. Same as the last 2, it's a blue Go Again enabler, although this is by far the worst one since it's 2 cost. However, it can be used with a 3rd card in hand, the Courage of Bladehold, and also does work with that little bit of spice that I'm going to get near the end of this list. But the moment we get another blue Go Again enabler at 1 cost, you cut this card. Now, while the Go Again section may have had some blue pitch filler, the sword boosting section of the deck does not. Since our strategy is swinging twice and taking advantage of the second swing when we can, most of our pump cards work specifically on that second attack. Push Forward and Second Swing are 2 key cards here, one giving a +3 boost in Dominate and the other being a clean 1 for 4. Slice and Dice is also one of our best options, giving the first sword swing a +1 boost and the second a +3, netting us 4 power for 0 resource. I also want to quickly mention Hit and Run once more, as the reds are also great for boosting your second attack. As for attack reactions, we've got In the Swing, which guarantees a +3 boost on our second attack, but also 1 copy of Iron Song Response. This card only gives +3 if the opponent blocked with the card in hand, but it's a great way to make sure your Dawnblade hits on a Glistening Steel Blade turn. You can definitely run a second copy if you'd like, but because we can search this out with Singing Steel Blade and opponents aren't always guaranteed to block, I opted just to run the 1. And another one of is the Iron Song Determination, which is also another card that you can run 2 copies of if you'd prefer. This card gives the Dawnblade +1 and Dominate for the turn, which is fantastic again for those Glistening Steel Blade turns. And the final card that serves that purpose is the 2 copies of Blue Overpower. This card is mostly here as a blue block 3, however there will be times when you can use it to kill an unsuspecting opponent with a +4 to your weapon. This card can easily be swapped out with a different blue, like In the Swing, Slice and Dice, or Push Forward, really whatever you feel. The deck just needs a solid blue count to make sure there's always enough resource to attack twice each turn. Now with the core of the deck established, we have room for 4 extra cards. 2 of the cards I've chosen are Sink Below. Since we can play comfortably off 2 card hands, having a card that blocks for 4 instead of 3 is incredibly handy. And its ability can help dig for a blue or Go Again enabler if we need one. It's just all around an amazing card. However, the last 2 cards are where the spice of the deck comes in, those being Gore Belching and Rouse the Ancients. Rouse is simply a card you want in the deck, so if you see it, pitch it. Because when you play Gore Belching, it's going to reveal cards off your deck until it finds that Rouse, and since it has only 0 attack, Gore Belching will be a clean 0 for 7. Now there are a few ways to use Gore Belching. At worst, you block with 3 cards in hand, or all 4 if it's in arsenal, and you send it as your only attack. Since this is Blitz, you'll be attacking for at least 1/3 of your opponent's life total, so that's pretty good. You could also use it on turns where the Dynamo doesn't need to be refreshed, and you can attack with the Dawnblade, give it Go Again, and send the Belching instead of attacking again. This is really good if you only have a yellow pitch in hand to use. But the best play that you can do is utilizing Hit and Run to attack with the Dawnblade twice and then attack with the Gore Belching. This certainly isn't as easy to do with this deck as it was with Kassai, since she reduced the cost of her second attack, but as long as Dori has a 1 cost Go Again and a Hit and Run, she can attack twice and then send the 0 for 7. Most of the time you'll see people running Nourishing Emptiness in this spot, which you can do, but that card requires you to have something to pitch to it, whereas the Belching does not, letting you block more and still swing back. And so for that reason, I think Gore Belching is far better to play in this deck than the Emptiness. But that's it for the main deck. As for the sideboard, I don't know, man. I just threw in some Null Rune and Oasis Respites for Kano, although since he LL'd along with Kassai, those can now be for the Emperor. I also tossed in a Rout and Ironsong Determination to play against more defensive decks like Yoji, but you can really run whatever fits your personal meta. The deck is actually pretty flexible as long as you maintain that core of the Go Again enablers to keep the consistency. But anyways, that's my Dorinthea Quicksilver Prodigy deck. Again, I designed it to play a very similar style to Kassai Centauri Sellsword, so hopefully that deck serves its purpose. Luckily, a good number of the cards carry over from the Kassai deck, so if you bought into her before her ascension to Living Legend, you aren't out on your purchases. But you know who is out on their purchases? Oh, all the goofs who decided to be patrons for this channel. Goofs like the GigaChad Saint, Geeks First, Elixir, Smokeopotamus, John, Ty, James, Chemical, Bryant, and Transient Fire. Then we've got the Alpha Chads, Thomas and Dark Memoria, and the Super Chads Bruno, Jake, Thal, Cece, Eric, Ben, Zajima, Cameron, and Yogbadoodles21. Thank you as always for your support, and stay Chadly, my friends.